Welcome back to another video. Recently, we redrafted one of the best drafts in NHL history, at least as of recent. The 2015 NHL entry draft where Connor McDavid went number 1 overall to the Edmonton Oilers. And yeah, that was an interesting draft. Check it out. I have it linked right up in the top right scorecard right now. But yeah, that was an interesting draft. But here we are moving on to the next year, the 2016 NHL entry draft, where Austin Matthews ended up going number 1 to the Toronto Maple Leafs. And let's just start off the draft right away. There is no world where Austin Matthews is going anywhere but number 1. He's a top 3 player in the NHL, top 2. Some have him as number 1. But Austin Matthews, so far in his career, he was drafted first overall by the Toronto Maple Leafs, of course, well deserved. I'm going to draft him here to Toronto to make sure that that draft pick gets locked in. But I got his stats here pulled up. 407 games, 457 points, well above a point per game. So, I mean, we have no issues here with the Austin Matthews. I think that's a universal pick. At number 2, I'm not going to choose Patrick Laine. I'm going to go off the board a little bit here. I'm going to grab one of the Tkachuk brothers, Matt Tkachuk from the London Knights in the OHL at 2nd overall to the Winnipeg Jets. I think Tkachuk at 2 is a very safe pick too. I think the consensus is Austin Matthews 1, Matt Tkachuk number 2. Matt Tkachuk put up 100 points this year, one of his best years, or his best year in the NHL so far, but 431 games, 382 points, just shy of that point per game mark, but he is an absolute menace to play against. And next up on my list, I have my first reacher. You know, I love my reachers, and the Columbus Blue Jackets, you're going to be getting a reacher here. We're going to have to scroll all the way down to a player who went 39th overall and see if we can find him here. Come on, where is he? Might just be easier to type it out, and it's going to be Alexander DeBrincat. I'm taking him at 3. This is pretty high. I'm not going to lie. Pretty high for DeBrincat, but the last couple of years scoring 40 goals back to back. He's been probably the best player outside Patrick Kane for the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, a little bit high. I could have went, I think there's 2 or 3 other players that could have went above him, but I really like him. I think he's a great player. The only disadvantage he has is he is very small compared to the rest of the league, but super quick, great release, great shot. And I'm going to take him at number 3 here. So Matt Tkachuk will go 2. Alex DeBrincat will go 3. So DeBrincat, 368 games played, 307 points. And at number 4, this is who I was going to put at number 3 originally, but I decided against it. He was originally taken 66th overall, but I saw him over here somewhere. Let's scroll down. Can I see him again? And there he is. Adam Fox. I didn't know he was drafted this year, but I found him. He actually went 66th overall, which is insane. Definitely taking him at 4, arguably at 3. One of the best defensemen in the NHL, a Norris Trophy winner. So I'm going to draft him here at number 4 to the Edmonton Oilers, who are always in need of a defenseman. Not primarily an offensive defenseman, but it'll definitely happen. But Adam Fox's numbers are ridiculous. 163 points in 203 games, originally going at 66 up to 4, so definitely one of the highest jumpers so far. And then back on schedule here, I have another guy who jumped a lot, and let's go look for him. And it's going to be a defenseman headed to the Vancouver Canucks at 5th overall, and I'm going, Charles, is that his name? Charles McAvoy? Or is it Charlie? I like Charles. Charles McAvoy at 5th overall to the Vancouver Canucks, one of the star-studded defensemen in this draft. I think there's a couple that you can argue about, but Charles McAvoy going to the Vancouver Canucks, who I think is desperately in need of a defenseman, just like the Edmonton Oilers. So it's kind of, if they can do this over, I guarantee this is how they would do it. So McAvoy, a stud, 178 points in 313 games. And now we're going to draft, who are we on? The Calgary Flames. So originally this is where they got Matt Tkachuk. They got lucky here. They got Matt Tkachuk. Actually, they made a trade to 4 to get Matt Tkachuk, I believe. Yeah, did they? Yeah, they made a trade to 4. Or no, they got him at 6. Wow, Tkachuk went at 6. I thought he was at 4. Okay, well, I'm thinking Brady. Yes, as a Sens fan, always thinking of the Ottawa players. Brady went to 4. But with the 6th overall pick, instead of having Patrick Laine, or not Patrick Laine, Matt Tkachuk. I'm going to give him a goal scorer. Patrick Laine is going to go at 6. To the Calgary Flames, I mean, kind of ostracized for his performance and his slumps, but he still is a world-class goal scorer. His shooting is unbelievable. So you kind of got to give it to that guy. Put him with Johnny Gaudreau and let him shoot. Put him with the Calgary Flames. So Matt Tkachuk will no longer be on the Calgary Flames, and we got Patrick Laine there going 6th overall here. Fair? Do you guys think that's fair? I think it's fair. Patrick Laine, 407 games played, 327 goals, or 327 points, 176 goals, second most goals in the entire draft, right behind Austin Matthews and slightly ahead of Alex DeBrincat. So moving on here, we'll speed it up a little bit. At number 6, who are we going to go here? Or not 6, sorry. At number 7, we are going to go with the player who was originally drafted number 7. I think he's a really underrated player, and that's going to be the Arizona Coyotes, Clayton Keller. So we're going to keep him at 7. You could go Chicherin, could go Dubois, but I think Clayton Keller is a really good player. He just plays on an absolutely atrocious team, so he doesn't really get the respect that he deserves. But I'm keeping him at 7, so 7 apiece for him. 360 games, 256 points on an awful team. Clayton Keller will be going 7. Next up, we got the Buffalo Sabres, and this is a little bit of a drop, but I still think this player is good. Coming straight from Cape Breton, we're going Pierre-Luc Dubois, originally drafted at number 3 overall to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and then he was a big piece of that Winnipeg Jets trade for, I think it was Laine, if I remember correctly. Was it that? Maybe. I'm getting old. I keep forgetting. But Pierre-Luc Dubois, 239 points in 361 games, a big power forward. Honestly, very effective in the playoffs. A big body. So Pierre-Luc Dubois going at 8 to the Buffalo Sabres. Number 9, the Montreal Canadiens. This is another time where I kept the draft pick the exact same, and Montreal definitely should have held on to this player. And it's going to be a defenseman. But it's not going to be Jakub Chicherin or Jacob Chicherin. I'm going to go with Mikhail Sergachev from the Windsor Spitfires. So he was originally drafted at 9th overall. Still going to keep him at 9th overall. Honestly, pretty impressive. He plays on a really good team. 174 points in 362 games. So I'm going to make that selection right now at 9 for the Montreal Canadiens. I forgot that Montreal traded him to Tampa Bay. But at 10, we got another jumper. So originally at 10, Tyson Jost was drafted, but I'm gonna go down the board a little bit here and look for a certain player that got drafted to the St. Louis Blues, I believe, and that's gonna be Jordan Kyrou going at 10th overall. Pretty high for Kyrou, but I think he's a really good player. So going back up to the top here, 10, Jordan Kyrou. So Kyrou, 122 points in 173 games. Bet you guys didn't know he was that productive. I definitely did when I was looking at his stats. So Jordan Kyrou rounding out my top 10 there. And now on to the Ottawa Senators, where we chose Logan Brown here. Moment of silence for the Ottawa Senators. This time we're getting a real deal defenseman. There's a lot of different options here. I think the best one is Jacob Chicherin to go to the Ottawa Senators here. So that would be drafting Chabot last year, Chicherin this year. That's a great 1-2 punch down in the defensive core. So I'm going to make that pick there. Chicherin at number 11. So Chicherin, 142 points in 337 games. And I think the next pick here is probably my biggest jump out of the entire draft. And this player, a little bit underrated, but this year, a point per game playing on a really bad team. Sick hands, super fast. And I'm not even going to try looking for him. I'm just going to type the name. And it's going to be Jasper Bratt, who was originally drafted by the New Jersey Devils at 162nd overall. We're going to be taking him at 12th overall for the New Jersey Devils. So funny how he still ends up on the exact same team, but he definitely gets his credit, drafted in the first round, top 12 here. So we'll keep it moving on here. Remove Bratt from the board. And next up, our first goalie going to come off the board here. And it's going to be to the Carolina Hurricanes. And let's look for him here. He should be listed, hopefully, in here. And there it is, Carter Hart. Carter Hart becoming a really good goalie for the Philadelphia Flyers. I mean, he was projected to make Team Canada's roster in the goaltending, so that just says something about how good he is. So I'm definitely going to throw him in the roster. And there it is, 13th overall. The Carolina Hurricanes will select Carter Hart, another big jump there, originally going 48th overall. And now we are moving on to the Boston Bruins. Boston last year, you saw 3 terrible picks. In 2015, you saw 3 terrible picks. But this time, they're drafting around the same spot. Only 1 first-round pick. And this time, we're going to go with the defenseman again. And that defenseman did have a pretty good jump up. He did have a big jump up here. Let's see if we can find him this way. We might have to search up the name. Yeah, it looks like we're going to have to search up the name. And it's going to be a player who actually just won the Stanley Cup, Samuel Girard. I think he's a really explosive defenseman and one of the best offensive defensemen. If he was able to get paired with Charlie McAvoy, that'd be unreal for McAvoy. But Sam Girard, a really good skater. A big fan of him. Colorado Avalanche player now. 144 points in 340 games. But moving on to pick number 15, the Minnesota Wild. We're sticking with the defenseman here. We're sticking with the defenseman, someone who went 53rd overall this time. So there were some steals in this draft. And it's Filip Hronek. He originally got drafted to, I believe, the Detroit Red Wings, who always do a great job in their scouting. But I'm going to draft Filip Hronek for the Minnesota Wild at 15th overall. So Hronek, 118 points in 245 games, really coming into his own in the last couple years. Like him as a player. And next up, I'm drafting someone who his point totals, they're not crazy, they're not bad. But it's just, if you want to win a Stanley Cup, this guy's really going to help you here. And his resume shows for it. It's going to be Ross Colton, who originally got drafted at 118th. We're taking him at 16 to the Arizona Coyotes. So let's make that pick there. Ross Colton, who had 51 points in 109 games. Honestly, I thought he was a really good player for the Tampa Bay Lightning during these playoffs. So I'm going to make that pick. Next up, we have the Nashville Predators. And I'm going to draft someone who did go in the first round. He did go in the first round. We'll see if I can see him right here. And there it is. Tage Thompson, probably Buffalo's best player this year. Made the All-Star game. I believe was a 30-goal scorer. So Tage Thompson, his future is definitely bright. A bigger lad out there. So at 17, we're taking Tage Thompson. 103 points in 223 games. And this is kind of where the draft gets... You can interchange so many players. But I'm not sure, you know? Moving on to pick number 18 here. With the Winnipeg Jets, they originally selected Logan Stanley. Definitely not the best pick. I'm going to move up here. I'm going to get a forward that was drafted by the Calgary Flames. Let me see if I can find him. There he is. Dylan Dubé. So Dubé originally drafted 56th overall. We're going to take him at 18. 75 points in 200 games, but a workhorse. Think he's a really good player, so I'm going to draft Dylan Dubé at 18. Yeah, like I was saying, this 18 or 15, 14 to 30, you can really have this in 1,000 different ways. I just have it set this way. At 19, we're going to finally here's the dog. The dog just wants to come hang out here. I guess not. At 19, we're finally going to choose the person who went 4th overall. Jesse Puljujarvi headed to the New York Islanders at 19th overall. The dog's freaking out, just staring at the floor, but that's okay. See you later, Percy. So we're taking Jesse Puljujarvi here at 19. I think that's great value. I don't think he's a terrible player. He cannot score, though. He struggles with goals. 98 points in 259 games, only 46 goals. Going to the 20th overall pick now, the last 10 picks of the draft, the Detroit Red Wings back up on the clock. In this selection, they chose Dennis Cholowitsky. Here, we're going to choose Luke Kunin. He's one of those guys, his stats aren't that impressive, but just super tough to play against. So I definitely think he would make a great addition to any kind of Stanley Cup contending team. Anyone who's on the up and coming need to win those big hard games. So we're going to draft Kunin there. And then moving on to 21, we're going to draft someone who's drafted 17th overall. So not too crazy of a drop. And that's going to be Dante Fabro to the Carolina Hurricanes. So we'll make that pick. Dante Fabro to Carolina. He originally went 17th overall, 48 points in 174 games. Still not the craziest numbers yet, but as he grows, he'll get a little bit better. And next up, we're going to choose another defenseman who went 13th overall in the draft for the Philadelphia Flyers. And we are going to see if I can find him on this list. Not Yulievi. Jake Bean. There he is. So Jake Bean, we're going to take at number 22. Originally drafted 13th. 37 points in 111 games. I just like Jake Bean, so it's kind of like a pick with my heart, sort of say. But Jake Bean, going to take him at 22nd overall to the Philadelphia Flyers. Florida is up next at 23, and they originally drafted Henrik Bjornstrom, who has 26 points, 110 games. Not going to make it out of the first round here. I'm going to go with Lindgren, Ryan Lindgren. See if we can find him in this selection. There he is, Ryan Lindgren, a defenseman. He originally went 49th overall, so not a crazy jump, but jumping into that first round, mid-first round, where he originally went middle of the second round. So Ryan Lindgren, 45 points in 194 games played. A pretty good player there. Anaheim next on the clock at 24. And this is another one of my big jumpers. And that's going to be someone who got traded for 2 first-round picks here. And that is going to be Brandon Hagel, who originally was drafted 159th overall. Percy, would you relax, my good sir? Originally drafted 159th. We're going to draft him at 24 here. He's really proven to be a really good player this year. Almost won a Stanley Cup. Close. 68 points in 130 games. He's only going to get better. A good contract. So Brandon Hagel is going to be drafted with a 24th overall pick. 25, we're going to draft. Let's see if we can find him here really quickly. Come on. Where is he? Not going to be able to find him, eh? It's going to be Barrett Hayden. So Hayden actually originally, or Howden, not Hayden, sorry. Howden. So Howden originally went 27th overall. We're going to take him at 25. Numbers aren't crazy. I just kind of like him as a player, basically. Again, these bottom picks, kind of whatever you really want. So Brett Howden, 69 points in 225 games. A really good third, fourth line center if he can work on that defensive game. But that is where we're going to go there. And then next up for the St. Louis Blues, originally they took Tage Thompson here, which was a really good pick. This time, they're going to get a different type of player. They're going to get Kiefer Bellows, who hasn't played a lot of NHL action, only 67 games, but in those 67 games, he has 25 points. I think he has a bright future ahead of him, and it's kind of like one of those chance picks. Next up, as a Sens fan, I got 2 questionable picks here, but I actually don't think this one's that bad. For the Ottawa Senators, this player was originally drafted by Pittsburgh. So for Tampa, a backup goaltender, and it's going to be Philip Gustafson. You could take a chance with him. I think out of the rest of the players available, he's kind of good value at that 27th overall, leaving us with 3 final picks here. The first one for the Washington Capitals is going to be a defenseman. I thought of Olli Juolevi. He just, in my opinion, I thought he was going to be good. The dog, are you coming up? You want to come up? You're close. You're close to jumping up. I thought he was going to be really good. Didn't end up being that great. I still think he has potential. Definitely needs a change of scenery. But I'm going to go with Dante Fabro, who was originally drafted 17th overall. So let me find Fabro here. I actually lied. I already had Dante Fabro drafted, looking at my board. So we're going to actually give him Juolevi. Let's do it. Juolevi going to the Washington Capitals on kind of a mess-up pick, but that is what it is. Hopefully he can work out there playing with the grade 8 Alexander Ovechkin. And now we have 2 more picks, and now I really just screwed myself because I had Juolevi going to the Boston Bruins. But I have another player for the Boston Bruins that would be a good fit, and that's going to be Tyson Jost from Colorado. So he went 10th. I'm going to go Tyson Jost here. The end of the draft's become a disaster. I made a mistake. It is what it is. The final draft, this is where the Ottawa Senators and me comes out. Ranked number 12 on this, Mr. Logan Brown. Honestly, Logan Brown isn't that bad of a player. Huge body, 6'6", and in 69 career games, he has 20 points. Not the best, but he actually really turned it on for the St. Louis Blues this year, in my opinion. So that is going to be my draft for the 2016 NHL entry draft. So let's review it real quick. We got Austin Matthews going 1, Tkachuk 2, DeBrincat 3, Adam Fox 4, McAvoy 5. I think in any mock draft, that's kind of going to be your top 5. Maybe you'll have a couple different changes around 3 to 5. But I think 1 and 2 is pretty set in stone. 6, we're going line 8. 7, Clayton Keller remains the same. Pierre-Luc Dubois goes to 8. Mikhail Sergachev once again goes 9th overall. And to round out the top 10, we have Jordan Kyrou, who has some pretty underrated numbers. And then we got another defenseman off the board, Jakub Chicherin at 11. Jasper Bratt, one of the biggest jumps, 5'9", 171, going from 78 only to 112, but he was drafted 162nd overall. Goaltender, first goalie off the board, Carter Hart at 13. Then we're going Sam Girard and Philip Hronek, 2 back-to-back defensemen. Then 3 straight centers here, Ross Colton at 16, Tage Thompson at 17, and finally Dylan Dubé at 18. Finally, Jesse Puljujärvi's name gets called at 19 to the New York Islanders. And to finish up the top 20, Luke Kunin gets the call for the Detroit Red Wings. And then the final 10, Dante Fabro, Jake Bean, and Lindgren, 3 straight defensemen. Brandon Hagel, Brett Howden, Kiefer Bellows, another goaltender, Philip Gustafsson, and then the final 3, Oli Ulievi, Tyson Jost, and then my boy, Logan Brown. So let me know what you think about the 2016 NHL entry draft. Who are your top 5 picks? Who was my most outrageous pick, and who did I miss? I definitely want to know who I missed. I know I had some interesting picks in there, like Luke Kunin and that type of stuff, but let me know. And yeah, that's going to do it for this video. So as always, have a great day. The dog's panting like a psychopath below me. So take care, enjoy, peace out. I'll see you next time.